Is the microphone direction to your liking?
Yes.
They can hear you. That's good. That's good.
Right, we're ready to go. Let's go. What is up, YouTube? It's James from Robinhenrywatches. How are you doing?
They can't hear you.
I know. It's not even like a time. I could be like, Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. Well, what will it be by then? It will be the 20.
It'll be close.
We'll be past.
Although,
Valentine's Day.
Answer me this: why is the UK Mother's Day different from the US?
For one reason only. To hit me up when America's Mother's Day comes up, and I'm like, I've missed. Wait, hang on a minute. We've already had it. I have that one heart attack where everyone's saying Happy Mother's Day, and then you're like, oh no, I did that already. I can't think of any other reason. That's what happens.
Wrist check. I'm still wearing the same watch
and the same jumper. And
I'm
drinking the same drink.
I'm always wearing black, and I'm always drinking something. So, right, let's get into it. What are we talking about today?
So, Rolex. Exactly, and this is my point. I was curious to see what your reaction would be. It's boring. It's making everything
bewilderment, boring. Like
the watches are fantastic. The attitude and everything around it is boring, depressing.
Yep.
Why? When will we see an end? Give me all the answers to the big questions. What is the meaning of life?
No one has got the answers, and it's just bollocks. I think the main problem with it is with Rolex right now. Yeah, you're right. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the watches. The watches are awesome.
In fact, the watches are better than ever. But
it's all about the money, and it's bought. I think whatever it is, whether it's a hobby or whatever it is in life, it's always good that when more people
on finances, that's what it is.
Well, it's that too. But more people come into something, it's good. But it's bringing in a lot of people which don't care about watches, don't know anything about watches, don't have any passion for watches. All they care about is money and flipping. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, the flippers, the great dealers. I'm a part of the problem to a certain point, and I'll admit that. Do I sell modern Rolex above market price? Yes. But it's because I have to buy above market price. It's not like I walk into Mappin and Webb and be like, can I have a new GMT or Daytona so I can sell it on my business and make 3 times as much? Yes, of course you can, Mr. Robin, whatever you want. No, it doesn't work like that. People go to the AD, they call me up, slide in my DMs and be like, how much will you give me? Oh, hello. Yeah, okay, right, yeah, sure. This one. Nah, mate. Chrono 24 says this. And you're just like, oh.
And that, I think, is more of the problem, because there's no regulation at all. You go on Chrono.
That's fine. There doesn't need to be regulation, but it's like people look at those prices and they're like, well, that's what I want. It's like, no, those dealers, they've got to pay Chrono 24 fees. They have overheads. They've got staff to make. They've got to pay tax. It's got to be worth their time. They've got to be compensated for the risk of overpaying for these watches, because it's a market, it goes up, goes okay, it's been going up for a long time, but there's still a great deal of risk. And the reality is, with most Rolex watches, most grey dealers or whoever's selling Rolex is generally only making about £1,000 if they're lucky, maybe even less. Of course, there'll be examples of more on the bigger pieces where they might be making several £1,000s, but predominantly, like if I wholesale one, I make about £300-400.
Yeah,
that's why I'm not doing it anymore. It's like I can't be bothered.
And that's usually just through careful buying. That's not taking advantage of the situation. That's just
there's no take. The only people that are taking advantage, and I'm not blaming people, is the people that go into the ADs for one purpose, to get that watch and flip it straight out. Yeah. And I don't blame them, because it's easy money. So why not do it?
And it denies the people who actually want to buy it a chance of actually getting something.
I've literally heard from people. I get contacted sometimes. There's a guy that's contacted me over the last year. I had some messages back and forth, and he was venting. He was frustrated. He wants this watch from the Rolex dealer. He's not that into watches, so he didn't really get the whole where the market's at, and I get that for new people coming in. It's a massive put off if you just got to a point in life and you're like, yeah, I want to mark this occasion, or I want to reward myself with a Rolex. I get that, and then you walk in there like Billy Big Balls, like,
finally gathered together like 7Gs.
Exactly, and they're like, no, and you're there like, what?
Your 7Gs aren't good now.
But anyway, so he was there, lambasting them like, oh, the ADs, it's their fault, blah blah blah. And listen, they've got a part to play in it, but they're not the only ones. And then this guy gets a Rolex, sits on it, and then flips it for a profit. Like, you're the problem. So he's
creating the problem he's complaining about.
And I do get it. I'm not like just putting it on him, because, when you get that new Rolex, the temptation is flip it, make a few grand, right?
Yeah.
You can walk in there and buy a GMT or a Daytona, and make 10, 20 grand. I get the temptation, and you could also put an argument to say, well, you'd be stupid not to.
Yeah.
I get it. Like, if they called me up, I mean, my Cartier Solar Beat, call me, they're not going to call, but I'd be like, if I had a Daytona, I'm thinking, well, I've got kids, I've got a mortgage. If I can make 20 grand, 25 grand easy money, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell it. So that's where the market's at. But I'd also say, then don't go bitching about it either.
Yeah.
The prices, people say, oh, it's dealers pushing the prices up. There's going to be some part of that. I mean, it's not like someone as small as me. I'm not dictating or pushing the market in any direction. I'm like...
You're working around the market.
Yeah, exactly. I sell the odd modern Rolex at, I would say, below market price just. So I'm trying to be as reasonable as I can. I'm not making thousands on a watch. I'm not even making $1,000 on a watch.
One might call it responsible flipping.
Responsible flipping. But here's the thing. Like, okay, another example. So the blue Datejust that I recently sold, the unworn one.
The numerals.
Yeah. So I sold that for £8,750. Okay. A guy messaged me and was like, I'll take it, but £1,000 off. And I was like, I was very polite. I was like, no, listen,
you didn't even pay that much for it.
I get it, but that's more than my margin on this watch. And he retorts by calling me greedy. And I'm like, fuck you, I'm not being fucking greedy.
Yeah.
People like you, okay, that's a bit harsh, but people that go to the ADs and then sell it on, they're the ones that are taking all the money.
Exactly. Not
the dealers. I mean, listen, there are probably some dealers that are, but I'm not. In that case, I was making a few £100s in it. And if you know the market and you recognise it, like I had a guy that did buy it, no bullshit. Yeah, I like it, I'll buy it. Yeah. And that's the person that it's for. They know that they're paying over the retail price, but they know they're getting it at market rate or below. And the reality is, if they want to shift it on in a few weeks' time or a few months or a few years, they will be getting market price then, which I'm sure will be way above what they paid.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's like this. Remember the other guy that commented on Facebook?
Yeah.
That absolute moron. Like,
he was baiting.
He was baiting, and his comment was this. It was on the same watch. This: how much was it new? Well, you know damn well how much it is new. If you even know about it, or two, you can Google it. And then I said, well, it depends where you live. Like, because where we live, they're very cheap. If you can get it new.
Technically speaking.
So I was like, it's around $6,000, depending on what country you live in. And he was like, his exact wording, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, was, well, why the hell are you selling a second-hand watch for more money?
Yeah.
I was like...
go find one at $6,000.
That's like, okay, I'll tell you what. How much do you pay for your house? Sell it to me for less, because it's a second-hand house that you've used and lived in.
Yeah.
Guess what? No is going to sell their house for less. But where's this market? It's like any market. You buy, let's say, a Lambo or a Ferrari or Porsches. Everything, all luxury products, bags.
It's the same as any interest-based boom.
Yeah, exactly.
It's simple.
And it's like and then later on the thread, when other people of a sound mind and 2 or more functioning brain cells were like, that's the market.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, I might see what I can get for mine, dude. You don't have one.
That old chestnut.
You don't have one. You can't play in this game. And if you got a problem... And here's the thing. So it's like, okay, so he was completely against it, but now he's happy to sell his for a profit. Oh, and this is
all people get is a single whiff of it.
It's just winding me up. And then I'm like, why am I even bothering sell this? Like, I just want to I want to sell Cartier. I want to sell vintage Rolex. There's so much value in vintage Rolex.
And so much more interest.
It is, for sure. And it's a shame because pre-COVID, I don't think COVID had anything to do with it other than ruining our lives for 2 years. But vintage was on a real high, and everyone was talking about it.
Yeah.
And boom. And don't get me wrong, the vintage market is still very strong. It hasn't devalued. It's just not as hyped as new Rolex models. And I'd like to see the market go back that way a little bit. I mean, they were climbing quite similar, which is getting a little bit silly. But anyway, off the point. But yeah, so much depth and variation. And that brings out really good watch collectors. I mean, don't get me wrong, vintage watch collectors can be a little bit nutty. Yeah. But it's way more interesting than Batman, give me this, give me that. Like all these stupid names. Yeah. People you ask some of these people, explain to me how a watch movement works. Yeah. They probably wouldn't be able to tell you. Yeah. They don't know anything. All they know is Rolly, Batman, Smurf.
It's just too much hype. I would take, genuinely speaking, ridiculous hype and everything aside, just based on its own intrinsic, features. I'd take my Datejust over, a whole penny day.
Do you know what would actually be good for the general? I wouldn't say maybe the watch market, but for watch collecting, it'd be great if Rolex had just tanked. Yeah. I wouldn't give a shit either. People already make money. If you look back at what I've made money on in the last year, it's not modern Rolex. It's other brands. Is it easy? That's why I got it. The market is that way at the moment, so I've got to cater to it because I don't have a large audience to always sell what I want. And like I said, I'm not against modern Rolex. They make really good watches. Yeah. But it's only a percentage. But yeah, it's like
it's death by association.
Of course,
being associated with the drama.
Everyone's a watch dealer now, not through experience or anything like that, or even
awareness
passion
of the situation. That's all
it's just all you got to do is be like go into your local Rolex AD. I would love to know. I mean, there's no way of telling this, but how many people actually keep their new Rolex watches right now? How many people that actually want one can't get one because of the market? And listen, I'm putting myself into that bracket as well, because if someone buys one out of the Rolex AD and they message me and say how much will you give them, I'll offer them a price for it. They won't always take it, obviously. I don't do huge amounts, but I've done a few. But
it's always through what I would call, not conventional is the wrong word, but almost ethically sourced modern Rolex. It's not straight out of an AD. You keep, after your history with certain ADs, you keep anything you buy now.
Yeah, 100%. But also the other thing is, generally speaking, the people that contact me and they've just walked out of, the local Rolex AD and they're like, I bought this, what will you give me for it? I'm not even going to be competitive because of what they want for it, because they're unrealistic and they're quite often rude with what they want. Where I get my modern Rolex from is from the market. So I'll go to a wholesaler and that's where I buy it from. Still the same sort of process. Someone sold it into the market, but it's at more realistic prices, because people will go into the Rolex AD and they'll come out and be like, I want 10 grand on top, for something silly. And you're like, well, there isn't that money in it.
No, there's no point you or I supporting that sort of thing, because we want to, still have that option to buy it the correct rate, not the market rate.
I mean, listen, I'm never going to be buying Rolex at retail price, because, I get that they don't want to sell those watches to someone like me because they'll be like, oh, he's just going to flip it. I get that. Yeah. And that's fine. And also, and to be honest with you, I don't particularly care, because I've owned every Rolex, modern Rolex there is, outside of the Pearl Master range. Maybe the old crazy thing. Yeah, exactly. They're great watches, but, in my opinion, there's a lot better out there. Like, interesting, because these days it's so boring. You don't see someone with a Submariner or a GMT like, oh yeah, that's a watch guy. You're just like, whatever, boring. But yeah, it brings up a whole range of emotions. I have to admit, I'm at a point with it right now where I'm like, I'm really bored of it all. Like the whole Rolex thing. If I was big enough as a dealer, I would probably make the decision to not deal in modern Rolex, like I did when I first started out. I said, and I still don't deal in AP or Patek, mainly because I'm too poor.
Yeah, you need capital. You need capital to do AP.
I need some serious,
You have one watch in your shop.
I need a 6-digit, capital fund that doesn't start with a 1. But yeah, I didn't do modern Rolex at first because I just didn't want to be involved in the bullshit. And I did still at that time buy the odd modern piece, and didn't want to get banned. It's just so boring. I might even go back to it. I'm like talking myself into it now. I want to be focusing more on vintage Rolex.
It's more interesting.
And other brands, like Chopard or Blancpain, Zenith.
I'm more interested in that Constellation we were talking about that you bought for what, £400 than the Submariner you're wearing right now.
Yeah, I mean, at least this has got a little something.
And that's going vintage. But I'm so fed up of the Rolex crap that it's like.
I think everyone is. I just think, and there's so many good brands out there.
Yeah.
That I can't even list all the names. Even Tudor, for example. I mean, more interesting. Omega's doing more. Breitling. Okay, forget about Breitling. Like, no one knows what Breitling is doing. I don't even believe that it's working. Like, who the buys a Breitling right now? But whatever. That's another discussion.
And the other offshoot of all this as well is that even non-watchy people who they see something different on your wrist and they're like, "What's that?" It's a Rolex. They're like, "Oh, okay, cool." You tell them it's a Tudor or something they might not have heard of.
And all they always say is, when you tell someone about Rolex, they're like, "Oh, it's a good investment." That. Oh.
Yeah. At least if it's a Tudor or like you said, if it's a Breitling or something, you've got something to talk about.
It's only in the last few years that the values have gone like that, and. I mean, listen, there's always been a market for Rolex and there's always been a way to make easier money with it than other brands, but this whole investment thing, it's just, it's very tiring and very boring.
Says you.
Right, what we need to do, quickly go onto the website, re-edit some text that I wrote out while I was intoxicated. But,
It was ironic. It was ironic and sarcasm, wasn't it?
Listen, I mean... If you're buying into vintage Rolex over time, you're going to come out all right. That's what I would like to say more than, don't. My thing is, and I'll always say this is, don't buy a watch just based on the money. Buy it because you like it.
Yeah.
Because once you start wearing it, if you only bought it for the upside,
I can see how depressed you are already.
I'm getting bored. Like, it's boring.
Rolex is boring.
Like, it is.
As much as it's not boring. It's frustrating. I don't want to be talking about Rolex this way.
Well, let's
I might go work for them and help them with their production just to
good luck getting a job there.
Yeah, and this is a whole extra problem. I try and go and train as a watchmaker now and start building Rolex. They're not increasing their production capacity because they don't want to harm the quality. It's so hard to get into it in the first place.
There's a worldwide shortage of watchmakers. Yeah. If you could go, like, if you're coming out of school right now, like, what a great opportunity that is right now. Yeah. Train as a watchmaker, because they are paying seriously good money.
Yeah.
If you've got the patience for a job like that and the skills and the aptitude to be able to do it.
And this won't stop with Rolex.
No, it's the whole market. That's a whole nother.
As the trade dies.
That's a whole nother conversation. Well, it is.
As the trade declines,
watchmakers worldwide.
Yeah, as the skill degrades and dies out, there is going to be a bigger crisis, and you will see this ridiculously with every other brand out there.
Well, there's robots, so maybe they can solve the problem.
I want to buy a watch. That's the sort of that like Seiko or Zenith will come out with robot-made watches.
Zenith don't have robots making
I'm saying they would eventually.
Yeah, probably.
They'd be one of the first to jump on it.
Seiko do. Seiko.
Sorry. Yeah. But that will evolve into Grand Seiko. They'll be like, oh, we can do it.
Yeah, maybe they get like Grandmaster robots and they do it.
Robots make Seiko and the expensive ones that can talk to you.
And they like oil them with like expensive Japanese whiskey.
Yeah. Oh, me, right, this has gone on too long.
Right, we done now.
Yeah, stuff will be in the shop because we're filming in advance again.
All we've got is modern Rolex of every hype piece. I mean, the good news is you're not going to... Well, it's not good news for me, but yeah, you're not going to find the shop because I can't afford it all. But anyway, yeah, check out what's in the shop. Please like, comment, subscribe. Any comments? Listen, I'm happy for you to disagree with me or call me out if you like, well, you're part of the problem. Listen, hit me up with it. Let's discuss.
You can't be wrong. You've done both opinions.
Yeah, well,
Your
listen,
opinion's
I
right.
think, we're all part of the problem. Anyone who's involved in it. But anyway, not everyone. But, yeah, listen, get in the comments. But more importantly, like or dislike, I don't really care.
We haven't had any good comment fights yet.
I know.
I'm really disappointed. There's been more excitement in 1 week on Facebook than, like, nearly a year on YouTube.
Yeah, I know. Like, Facebook is probably full of trolls. Yeah, it's not my place. Anyway, check out the shop, robinhenrywatches.com or Instagram, Facebook. We out.